Welcome, welcome, everyone. I'm Maggie Ostara, and I'm delighted to be here with you to talk today about a super important topic in human design and in our lives today in general, which has to do with burnout. Because it's really an epidemic that's happening certainly in the Western world. I think not only in the Western world though. So it's important, I think, for us to be able to address it and to understand it better. And it's for ourselves, right? But it's also for the people around us, for the people that we work with, that for our kids and our families and so on. So this video on avoiding burnout with human design is the first in a series of videos on burnout and human design, and there will be more of these coming out on YouTube. I don't know if I'll be streaming them directly into the community like I am right now. It's possible that I will, depending on the timeline. But I just want you to know that this is kind of a foundation setting one of the videos, and then there will be more that's coming on later with other types of guidance for you and kind of drilling in more deeply into certain parts of the chart and certain parts of the system that will help us to understand why burnout might come in different places depending on what, like what your type, strategy, and authority. We're going to talk about that today, but also depending on your profile and the parts that are open or defined in your chart. There's a lot of different aspects, what your circuitry is, what centers you have open or defined, all of that. Okay. So let's first just talk about what are some of the things that cause burnout. And certainly, if we just start with the kind of regular things that we know of that are not specific to human design, they tend to come from things like not caring for the body, right? Having too sedentary a lifestyle, not giving yourself enough fresh air, enough good food, enough time outside, not caring for your energy, not even knowing how to care for your energy. Like I was just talking about the Kundalini yoga and the energy practices that we have from that tradition really help us to learn how to care for our energy. And if you don't quite know what that means and you're interested in it, inside the community, there is a class on energetic hygiene that I did in December. And I go into that in more detail there. Caring for your body, not caring for your energy are two big ways that we can burn out, right? And our culture doesn't teach us very much about how to take care of our energy. But we're not even that good about taking care of our body. We tend to think of it as kind of a machine that we need to go and just, put fuel in and work it out at the gym or run it and not really understand what our body needs to be healthy and happy. And that certainly can make us drain our energy. Other factors are things like conflict in relationships. Conflict in relationships are very, very draining. A lot of times if you have a fight with one of your beloveds, you can go on chewing on that conversation for days, right? And if it doesn't get resolved, it can definitely be like an energy drain on you, and that can certainly lead to burnout. If conflict in your relationships is habitual, whether that's with people in your family or it's people at work. I've talked to a lot of people who come to me for readings who've been really burned out from conflict at work. So just take a look at that for yourself. Right now, as of today, we moved into a transit where the sun is lighting up the gate 49 and the earth is lighting up the gate of possibilities, gate 4. And that configuration, which you can look at in the current transit report, which is in the community and also on YouTube, will help you to kind of have some energy to work if you do have conflict in your relationships, because the earth is in the gate of possibilities. So if we can stay in a state of possibility, and then the 49 is kind of a revolutionary energy. It's been renamed the catalyst in quantum human design, and it is about relationships. It's in the tribal circuit, and it's the energy that we have around, should I stay or should I go? Basically, what are the terms of this relationship? Is it working for me or not? Are the terms of the relationship explicit? Is one person operating under one set of understanding, principles, and another person is operating under another one? Is there a way for this to come together? So if you do have any conflict in your relationships, this upcoming week is a really good time to work on that. And I would recommend that you check out that transit report so that you can get some more specifics about what that looks like. Some other kind of cultural causes of burnout are things like too much time on devices, too much time on television, in front of computers, just in general being around a lot of electronics, especially Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and cellular, because all of these different energies definitely impact our energy field and they can drain us. Some people are very sensitive to these kind of energies, other people not so much. Fortunately, I'm not that sensitive to it, but I definitely can feel it if I spend too much time on the computer. It definitely can lead to burnout. And then on the other side of that is like not having enough time outside and not having enough time with your feet on the earth or lying on the earth or sitting up against a tree or by the ocean or next to a river or on a meadow or whatever is possible for you in the environment that you're in. We are designed to be in relationship to the earth. And so when we are not, it's actually really hard on us. So make sure that you're getting some of that. Working for too long, obviously, working for too long, working too much for too long, right? Especially if it's habitual, days that are too long, weeks that are too long. And if you do it over and over and over again, that's how I burned out and also in relation to not living my design. That's how I burned out multiple times. So it's just working too much for too long. And then just one final thing is, really eating poison, which I know that sounds extreme, but it's true. If you're not eating organic food, chances are the food that you're eating, it has been poisoned with glyphosate, which comes from Roundup. It's in the water, it's in the air, it's in the soil these days, and it's very hard to escape anyway, but especially in our food. And particularly if you're in the United States, I think it's not as bad in Europe, but I don't actually really know. And so just being aware that when we eat food that's been commercially grown, it has been sprayed with poison and you can't wash it off. And so doing that will definitely impact your health and can lead to some burnout for you because you're putting heavy metals and a really heavy load onto your physical form. And it's really not designed to have to deal with that. Okay, so those are some just kind of cultural factors that typically are leading to burnout. And then I'm going to share with you a number that are really coming from a human design point of view. And there's some overlap, but human design has a very particular lens through which it understands our energy and what it is that we're doing and how we can be getting in our own way because we don't understand our design. So number one is just living against your design, right? Which unfortunately most people do. Sometimes when I do readings for people, and this particularly tends to be for people who are a bit older, they have figured out things about their design already through their life experience, and that's great. But a lot of times we haven't. I mean, I know I hadn't until I came to human design. I had no idea why I kept burning out. Not really. And I was like, yeah, I work a lot, but really, why do I do that? But typically what's true for people is they're initiating too much and at the wrong time. Initiating too much and at the wrong time. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later when I talk about type, strategy, and authority. But because it's not that types other than manifestors can never initiate, because we can. It's about how we enter into things, and we need to enter into things in alignment with our strategy. And if we're a generator, a manifesting generator, projector, or reflector, we're not designed to enter into things through initiating. If we enter into things based on our strategy, so for generators, manifesting generators through response, and through projectors by being invited, and reflectors through the community kind of recognizing who they are and calling them forth, then if we enter in correctly, then we can initiate once we're inside of that. Okay, I'll come back to that a little bit more. Another is trying to be someone that we're not. right? This is very, very common because generally speaking, we are conditioned to be not ourselves. We're conditioned to make ourselves into the people that our families and our communities and our culture think we should be. And we're usually pretty willing to do that because we're learning and we're picking up from our environment, and we trust our families, and they're telling us we should really do, this thing in order to, to create money, in order to have a family, in order to be safe, and so on. And so a lot of times we follow those cultural and familial dictates about who we should be and what we should do. But very often they don't suit us as individuals. I know for me, I have a lot of individual circuitry, and I'm really not designed to fit in. I'm designed to be different. I'm designed to bring change and to be part of the evolutionary impulse of humanity. I'm not designed to fit in. And so I tried to fit in for many years and it didn't work out so well for me. I mean, I could do it to a degree, but it would always end up being, like it wouldn't work out for me. I would end up feeling kind of constrained, and I would need to move on. So human design can really help you to get clear about what your strengths are, your potential strengths are, knowing that you have the whole chart. So even though there are parts of your chart that are white, that are not colored in and are open, you still have all those parts of the chart, and you still have experienced those energies and expressed those energies thousands and thousands of times throughout the course of your life. So it's not that you don't have that. In fact, you do. And so human design helps us kind of, as a humanity, as a species, that the chart as a whole is a template for us as we're evolving as a species. And so it doesn't have certain things on it that are actually big factors in our world today. Like it doesn't have multinational corporations on it in the chart, right? Or things like sex trafficking of young women. It's not in the chart. Or, global scale war is not in the chart. There's all kinds of things that we're doing today that are not in the chart. And so looking at the chart as a whole, include the parts that are defined and the parts that are open, can help you to understand who, as a human being who is evolving through this time that we're in here on planet Earth. Human design gives us a template, and it helps us to see what we're not. And so if we're participating in big things that are happening in the world today that are not in the chart, that's not really who we are. Okay. And we're trying to be something that we're not, even though it feels really normal to us, even though we know lots of people who do it, even though it's around us all over, it doesn't mean that it's something that we're really designed to do. And this can definitely lead to burnout. Another piece is doing the wrong work for you. Now, this is especially true for generators and manifesting generators, because we have the energy to do the wrong work for a long time. I mean, eventually, typically people will get so frustrated or burned out trying to, because they're making themselves do things that they don't really want to do. Even generators and manifesting generators can get burned out. So doing the wrong work. With projectors and reflectors, they tend to get the message earlier because they get fried earlier. They don't have that same kind of sacral energy where you can just make yourself do stuff you want to do. So they kind of go, I'm out of here sooner, right? Which is actually a way that their design protects them. Now with manifestors, it really depends, because some manifestors are really empowered and they are able to do the wrong work, but a lot of times they're actually pretty good at creating the right work for themselves, or if they're working inside of a company, kind of reworking things so that it supports them. But you've got to watch out for that piece of doing the wrong work, because we spent such a huge amount of time doing whatever our work in the world is, right? It's typically a third of our lives doing this. And so we want that part of our lives to be in alignment with a deep sense of who we are, so that we're able to experience satisfaction if we are generators and manifesting generators, and we have this deep sense of knowing that we're on purpose, that we're doing the thing that we came here to do. Because when you do that, you get all kinds of fuel and you don't burn out. Another factor is running negative conditioning in your definition. Now, one thing is definitely just negative thinking, right? Low level thinking where you're in a lot of judgment or a lot of blame or victim consciousness or things like that. And that in general will drain your energy. So when I say running negative conditioning in your definition, what I mean is that every aspect of the chart has a disempowered aspect, a shadow aspect, and an awakened or empowered aspect. And so when we're running the disempowered or the shadow aspect of our design, then we're running this kind of negative conditioning, right? And so, for example, with the gate 28, victim consciousness is the disempowered aspect of the 28. The shadow aspect of the 28 is when we are trying to control or manipulate situations, potentially from a state of victim consciousness, because actually people in victim can be very powerful in their attempt to try to manipulate and control and get other people to do things for them, that kind of thing. But then the awakened aspect of the 28 is to really be on the leading edge of consciousness and to be taking a hold of the opportunity to not fit in and to be kind of the forward thrust, the bow of the ship, if you will, where we're leading into a kind of new reality. But every aspect of the chart, 64 gates, 36 channels, 9 centers, profiles, circuitry, all of that, right? They all have aspects, and we can run the negative conditioning in our definition. And when we do that, we can get really burned out, because if it's in your definition, it means you have a pretty consistent experience of of running that negative conditioning, and it takes more focus and your intention to actually change it into the more awakened and empowered expression. Now, it's totally possible to do that. I believe everything is changeable, and it just takes more effort and focus, attention, and perseverance to change the conditioning in your definition, so that if you're in a habit of being in victim consciousness, right, then, and it's defined in your chart, right, the 28 is defined in your chart, then you have to put more energy into changing it so that you're really becoming a spiritual warrior on the leading edge of consciousness. Okay. And then on the other side of that is not caring for your openness, because if you don't understand energy hygiene, if you don't know how to build and clear your energy, a lot of times people have tears and holes in their auric fields, or they have other people and other people's energies kind of hanging out in their auric field. And it can really impact you in your openness if you don't know how to move all that energy out. You kind of start to feel like you're really weighted down and you're carrying around a whole bunch of stuff and you don't even know what it is. And it's not even yours if it's in your openness, but it's kind of glommed onto you and it's stuck in your field, right? And so you want to be able to care for your openness, because if you don't, that can be super exhausting, right? If you could think about that, like you have tears and holes in your field, you're really porous. You have ways that other things can come in and kind of interpenetrate you. It can be very, very draining. Another thing related to this piece about doing the right work is forcing yourself to do things that you don't have the energy for. Even things that you potentially want to do, but forcing yourself to do it. A lot of times this happens because you're trying to do something at the wrong time. Another piece of this is being impatient, right? And not being willing to discern right timing, not being willing to be like, okay, this is something I really want to do. It's a really great idea. And I want to go ahead and do it now. And I'm going to push, even though you don't really have the energy for it. So even if your strategy is saying, like for me, like as a generator, I'd be like, right? Or even if when you talk it through as a projector, you're getting no, it's not the right time, but your mind tells you to do it and you go and you do it anyway, totally will lead to burnout. I did that a lot before I understood strategy. I just made decisions with my mind and I went ahead and moved forward with things only to discover that I didn't have energy for them. And then I had to use my willpower for too much for too long. Now, all of us need to use willpower on occasion, right? I mean, sometimes there's just things that we need to do, and we have to kind of use that willpower to get it done, right? But habitually doing that, like living in a state where you have to use your willpower all the time, will definitely burn you out. In human design, we say the will center, which is the center for willpower, works to rest, right? So it's designed to use that willpower, that fuel of will, for short periods of time and then to rest. It's not like the sacral that has ongoing, virtually inexhaustible energy if you're living in alignment with your design and you're paying attention. It's not like that. It definitely has a need for rest built into it. And so our culture teaches us often to just use our willpower, just push through it, just keep going, have another cup of coffee, have a, Red Bull, whatever it is, right? Just keep going. That's what the culture often says. And that totally will burn you out. Thinking that you have to make things happen. And I know I lived for many years thinking that I had to make things happen. I thought if I didn't make things happen, nothing was ever going to happen. What I've come to understand is that this attitude, certainly it comes from our conditioning, comes from culture, but it also comes from this sense that we're separate. We don't have any spiritual support. And we act like we're an autonomous, independent being, instead of recognizing that we are a part of the great web of life and that the flow of life is here to support us. It's here to help give us energy, to help give us guidance, to help us discern right timing. This is what human design really helps us to see. It gives us strategies and tools and guidance about how to know, is it the right time? Is it the right thing? And then, because then when we're using our strategy and we're using our authority and we're getting the green light, when we do that, then we don't have to make it happen so much, because the whole flow of life is behind us and is helping us to create, right? And that's when synchronicities happen. It's when resources come to us. It's when opportunities come, and so on. And one of the big things that gets in the way of this is the habit of making decisions with your mind. If you make decisions with your mind all the time, you're going to think you have to make things happen, because the mind doesn't know how to discern right timing. It doesn't really know how to tell you if you have energy for something or not. It's analytical and it's strategic and it knows how to plan and so on. But it tends to overthink. Right? It tends to overthink. It tends to, as soon as you make a decision, it comes up with like, well, what about this? And what about that? And, why did you think this? And it undermines you, right? And it fuels your FOMO, right? Your fear of missing out. And so the mind can be a really terrible, tyrannical master. And we don't want to allow the mind to have that kind of control over us. And human design helps us to see how to not do that. But when we do live with our mind in charge, we do tend to get really, really burned out. So that's something that we want to avoid doing. And human design will show us how to, sorry, hi, Colleen. Yeah, if you can just turn your camera off. Perfect. Thank you. Human design will show us how we can make decisions differently so that we're doing it with our inner being helping us along. Okay. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Other things that lead to burnout are being disembodied. And this is, again, something that we get from culture a lot, which is to spend our time in the thinking tower and being on the devices and so on, being on the phone and being at the computer tends to lead us to believe that we're just like a talking head, we're like a head walking around and we're not down in our bodies. Right. And when we're not in our bodies, it's really easy to do things that are harmful to us, because our bodies are a source of wisdom to us. Our bodies, all of the different authorities in human design come through the body. They don't come through the mind. None of them come through the mind. They all come through the body. But when we're disembodied, it can be very difficult for us to feel our authority, hear our authority, know what it wants to share with us. So being disembodied is often a response to trauma that we have as young people. Something scary is happening, and so we learn to kind of pop out of the body or just recede from the environment because maybe as a kid we weren't able to actually physically leave. And so you want to check that out for yourself, because healing and power, really like the power within, comes when we are in the body, when we are embodied. Another piece, and this is related to kind of negative thinking that we're talking about before, but which is comes from focusing on the past, right? And then being fearful of the future, like focusing on something that was scary or negative or unfortunate that happened in the past. And then we project that out into the future, and then we fear the future. So it's this kind of past and future thing that we're doing. And we're not actually here in right now, here in this present moment. And that if you habitually live that way, I mean, we all do that occasionally, right? We all do that sometimes, not necessarily the fear of the future, but we all kind of focus on the past and focus on the future at times, right? And we all need to plan, at least to some extent. But habitually living in the past and in the future is very draining and can totally lead to burnout, because you can't make good decisions and you can't really feel into what's right for you when you're not in your body and you're not in the present moment. Your greatest superpowers and your greatest allies, that where everybody needs to ground and begin, is with your type, your strategy, and your authority. Type, strategy, and authority are largely misunderstood. This is my experience, is they are largely misunderstood, and that people are operating on certain kinds of misconceptions that are inhibiting their ability to really drop into the power that your type, your strategy, and authority can give you. And part of it has to do with just not enough support, not enough training, not enough like working, with somebody like me, or being in a class like my Activate Your Superpowers class, or being in the community and talking to other people. Some of it comes just from that. Like if you're just trying to self-study human design, it's fine as a way to start, right? I did that for a long time. And then I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I really need to have some training, which is when I started. But actually, I took my first classes of recordings from Raw. And then I found Karen Curry Parker, and then she became my human design and quantum human design mentor. And it really helped me start to understand things at a whole different level. So if you do feel that you don't really understand type, strategy, or authority, I encourage you to dig deeper. Come join us in the Activate Your Superpowers class if you want to. It is open if you want to check it out, and I will put the link for the class, how you can register for that, in the when I post the replay, and because it's not as straightforward as it might seem, like not at all, really. Okay. So that's one piece. Another piece is that it really takes your willingness and your commitment to show up in your life differently. Because human design, what it's presenting to you with your type, strategy, and authority, is an energetic and a spiritual revolution. Okay. It's a energetic and spiritual revolution. It will change how you show up in your life. It'll change the way you perceive reality. It'll change the way you interact with other people. It'll dramatically change your energy. And it is a huge payoff when you get it. But in order to change your life, and I know this sounds kind of funny, but in order to change your life, you have to change your life. And it won't just happen because you learn, that you're a manifesting generator and you're designed to respond, right? Like just learning that isn't going to change your life, because what does it mean? How do you actualize that in your life? How does it show up on a day-to-day basis, right? It won't do that. So this is really an opportunity to radically transform the way that you live. And as I said, the payoff is huge. Right? For one thing, you stop trying to figure everything out. What a relief. right? You don't have to keep trying to figure everything out. And when you are able to drop down into the body and work your strategy, what you're doing is you're getting in touch with your inner being, because your strategy and your authority are your relationship to the flow of life and also to your own inner being. So for generators and manifesting generators, we're designed to respond, which means that we're here to be tuning into, listening to, asking for support from, looking for signs from, and aligning with this kind of deeper flow that the spirit or the universe is bringing to us, right? And when you do that, you do not have to use so much of your own energy. If you don't do that, you have to use your own energy to make everything happen. And that leads you to burnout. But when you tune into this deeper flow, right? Or for projectors, if they are understanding that their job is to get so involved with the things that make them feel on purpose, that they have enthusiasm about, that they are passionate about, and that they're there lighting that up in the world, they're going to receive invitations. They're going to be invited. But if what they think is that they need to sit at home on the couch, not doing anything, waiting for somebody to invite them, it's not going to work, right? So they need to actually be seen. They need to be heard. They need to show up where people can see them. And so that's the projectors misunderstand their strategy a lot. Manifestors in some way have it the easiest because they are designed to initiate. And in our culture, we understand initiating to some degree. But if manifestors are initiating out of their minds and not out of the creative impulse that's coming from the motor that they have connected to the throat, then they can burn themselves out that way too. So again, really getting your strategy and then your authority. So for all generators, our authority is our sacral. Even if you're emotionally defined, you still have sacral authority. You do have to take account of your emotional wave, because if you don't, the emotional wave can influence your sacral response to some degree. But just know, if you're a generator, a manifesting generator, that's 70% of us, you have sacral authority. And so learning how to use your sacral authority will protect you from doing the wrong thing at the wrong time with the wrong people. Because it'll be like, right? And your mind's like, oh, but it's such a great opportunity. And your sacral's going, And if you override that authority with your mind, you're not going to have energy to do whatever it is that you wanted to engage in, right? And I've heard so many stories from people, so many stories of regret they'll say, I knew that I shouldn't do it, but it just seemed like such a good idea. It just seemed like such a good opportunity. They seemed like good people. And then it crashed and burned. And they're like, I didn't listen to my intuition. So when you really get how your inner being is communicating to you, right? And is helping you to make decisions, go in this direction, go in this direction. No, don't go in that direction. Yeah, do it now. No, it's a good idea, but do it later, right? All of these different things that when you really get to understand your strategy and your authority, you can get a lot of information about how you live your life. But we've all been trained to be making our decisions and living our life out of our minds. And so it's a sea change, right? To actually go, oh, you know what? There's a deeper flow of energy that's moving through the universe, through our solar system, through our planet, through my life. And when I can actually get a sense of how that's working and I can align with that, then everything becomes easier. Meanwhile, your mind's going, what are you talking about? A deeper flow of energy. It's like, how do you even know if that's true? Aren't you just making that up? Maybe, some, woo-woo person told you that, right? It's the kind of thing the mind says. So what's really needed in order to take advantage of your type, strategy, and authority, and really your whole human design, is a deep sense of trust in the spirit realm. You need to have faith, a connection with spirit, right? A belief that there is a benevolent force in the universe. I like to call it the creative intelligence of the universe. Some people call it great spirit or God, goddess, all that is. There's many different divine energy, right? I like creative intelligence because it's obvious that the universe is being created and continually created, and that happened based on a creative impulse, right? Well, what did that come from? It came from that intelligence, right? Energy is intelligent. So having some kind of faith and trust in that, it's really, I think it's a bedrock for being able to use your strategy and your authority, because otherwise the mind will just take over again, and it'll undermine your best intentions to be able to use your strategy and your authority. Something that's super helpful is curiosity. It's just curiosity. I had a woman, Caroline Casey, who's a visionary activist astrologer, share with me once. She said, believe nothing, entertain possibilities. And I've always loved that because it kind of takes the pressure off. That logic and reason, that left brain energy is always trying to be like, well, do I believe it or not? Is it true or not? And it's like, well, just, suspend belief for right now, but entertain possibilities, right? And you can do that if you're not in a place where you do currently feel really connected with spirit or with your inner being or your intuition, your strategy and your authority. If you don't already feel that, you can just be like, okay, I'm not going to worry about belief right now. I'm just going to entertain possibilities. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to be willing not to know. Okay. I'm going to be willing to go into new terrain. I'm going to be willing to make mistakes as part of my learning and my growth, right? Mistakes, right? Because it just means something didn't turn out the way that you had hoped or you had planned, right? We don't even have to call it a mistake. It's just something that happened that turned out different, right? And having a new attitude, like having an attitude that supports you to say, hey, you know what? I think there are different ways. I don't necessarily know what they all are. And I suspect it, like I have a feeling that there is. So it's possibility thinking. Which is right-brained energy, which is in the sensing circuit. It's also in the knowing circuit. It's like, I wonder what's possible. And all the gates in the head are all about this kind of, I wonder, I'm curious, I'm open to new possibilities, right? I'm open to having a download. I'm open to epiphanies coming in. And so that could be a really new attitude, rather than I need to figure it out. I need to, see it to believe it. I need to quantify it and all that. It's just a very different way. It's a different attitude. It's very helpful when you're starting to lean into your strategy and authority. And then, of course, community, right? Which is for those of you who are here in the community to be reaching out and to be participating, commenting on what other people say, posting yourself, asking questions yourself, sharing about things that might have been confusing for you, and so on, right? The community, because human design is just such a different way of understanding how reality works and about understanding who you are and who all of us are, each of us are, right? It's really, really helpful when we have the support of other people. So those are some of the things that you can foster inside of yourself: your faith, your trust, your connection with spirit. Having a daily spiritual practice or regular spiritual practice, I recommend to all of my clients. And as I said at the beginning here, this is why I provide the Kriya practices inside of the community, because it helps foster that connection with spirit. And if you just want to think of it as the quantum field, like, if you're a follower of Joe Dispenza or somebody like that, right? Who's a quantum scientist. He uses a Western scientific lens, but he's talking about how do you actually access the quantum field so that you can create your reality in that energy, and then it has to crystallize into form. Okay. Well, we're doing the same thing with Kundalini yoga. We just have it, and it's science, it's yogic science. It's not Western science, but we're all talking about the same thing. And we're talking about how do we get out of trying to think through and use the analytical mind to do everything, and instead tap into this much greater force that is here to support all of us. Okay. So I want to end this portion, and then I want to read the comments in the chat, and also just hear from all of you, your comments and your questions. And if you want to pop any of those into the chat now, you can. But I wanted to just share with you a few different comments from videos I have on YouTube, because I thought that they're very relevant to what we're talking about now. And it might be helpful just to hear from some other voices. So these three here come from the video that I have, the very first one I did for manifesting generators. So the comment is, I don't understand. Opportunities never just come to me. I've always had to work for them, but my chart says manifesting generator, right? And so I responded to her, thanks for your comment. And yeah, I get this, can be difficult to understand. I used to feel the way that you do until I just stopped initiating for a while and paid attention to what showed up in my outer reality that I could then respond to. Until I did that, I couldn't see what was actually right in front of me, because I believed that if anything was going to happen, I was going to make it happen. It's a big mindset shift with huge implications. Maybe give it a try. And then she responded, wow, thank you so much for sharing. This is super helpful. It does feel like I'm closed off to my outer world as far as recognizing things and seeing opportunities. Isn't that great? She just immediately kind of had a shift right there. I feel like I have to hunt for them, and they're few and far between. I will definitely give this perspective a try. How would you say you first started doing this? Was it hard to stop initiating? I actually just responded to her, but I didn't save it here to share with you. Another one is from, I think these are maybe from the same video. I'm not sure. Okay. Patience. Patience is so important for me as a manifesting generator. When I get triggered, I can sabotage myself, thinking I'm not going to be able to make the right decision on my own. I go to others for guidance. Sometimes this just puts more pressure on me. That pressure tends to cause me to make impatient, poor choices. Before I go to others, I need to check in with myself. I have more capacity to make decisions than I sometimes believe. I love that. Really great awareness that she has there. And then this last one is, I used to meditate heavily because I wanted all the answers to so many questions. Now, see, that's so interesting. This idea that you meditate to get answers to your questions, that's not really what meditation is about. Meditation is about being able to open up to the creative intelligence of the universe, but it's not about going in and demanding that you have to answer my questions. Oftentimes that just leads to disappointment. One day I was just told, quote, wait and see. This was years ago, and I never understood what it meant for me until I started researching human design. I love that. It's so reassuring to hear all this now and know I'm not crazy for being so patient and letting opportunities come to me as they always have. Thank you. All right, dears, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for being here, and for those of you who are watching the replay later. And I look forward, I hope, to seeing a bunch of you next week on the chart reading lab. It's going to be a lot